Hello. This is the continuation of covering chapter 7, and maybe this is a video for week 12. So, my plan is to upload every single video file on the cyber campus before your final exam. And my targeting last day of uploading is just 1 week before our final exam date. It may be June 15th, I guess, right? So you have at least 1 week to study about every single part of PT file and videos that covers your final exam. Unfortunately, we will not able to cover the targeted chapters. It is unfortunate to me, but it might be opportunity to you because you have the smaller amount of things to study for your final exam. But anyway, so I'm just trying to my best to cover as many pages as possible. But I think we have 3 more slots because the last week, the week 15th, will be dedicated to the compensation week, right? If we missed any part of week or any part of class due to the national holiday or something, then the last week is dedicated to cover that part. But since we have studied online, National Public Day is not making any missing point from week 1, so we will ignore the last week for sure. Am I right? I don't know. I'm really bad in understanding the university regulation or something. It is really complicated, and I'm not good at that part. But anyway, so this is the wrap up part for the production sector. I'm pretty sure it means that we have studied about the profit part, right? The output and the input relation. And in the next chapter, we have studied about the cost part, the cost and the output of quantity. So we can relate those two different aspects of the production sector. Then we can get a kind of short conclusion how a single producer can maximize its profit or to minimize their cost. Minimizing cost is identical to the maximizing profit for a single producer, which is called the duality issue or duality concept in microeconomic theory. So we'll see the basic structure of the mechanism. Okay, so there are 3 basic rules you should remember. Remember means you can just understand and keep it in your mind, not memorizing every single sentence. Okay, so this is a little bit different story. In Korean, 삼천포. Grading your midterm exam and grading the past exam of my past students, the most disappointing point was that many students just try to write down what they memorized. That's the middle school study, right? That's not even high school level. In the level of college or level of undergraduate, you need to make an argument of your unique argument. In economics, usually most of answers should be the calculation or at least the proof. But even if we have some calculation problem or the proof problem, you still have your own argument. So making argument is the key to the core of university level of study. But many of my past students just tried to show me how they will memorize everything, memorize what I talked to them. I was pretty shocked because they wrote down exactly the same sentence I told them. Even the sentence was not in the PT file. They just memorized everything I talked to them. That was shocking to me because it does not have the student at all. it is just wasting time. It doesn't have your life after graduation. The reason why we study about economics is that it is simply the best solution of the social science to provide the insight of the world where it is, the world mechanism, how it works for a single human being or the group of the human beings. So understanding the mechanism is the key to studying the economics, and it does not require any memorizing skills. For instance, to me, I do not memorize any definitions of my economics textbook, from the principles of economics to the PhD level of textbook like macroeconomic theory or the monetary policy theory or something. I don't remember any part. But I still can write down some proof because it is the step-by-step logics. I do not have to remember the definition, but I can still start my own proof because I can make my own argument. So in the midterm, I wanted to see a little bit part of that, but very small piece of students could do that. That was totally expected, but still disappointing. But anyway, on your final exam, it will be the 객관식, the multiple choice type questions, because we have to meet each other and I have to collect the papers you touch. That was pretty much risky to me. So I need to minimize the chance to get touched with your paper you wrote or you used. So the best solution is to collecting only the spreadsheet of the OMR spreadsheet and deliver them to the university HQ to get the grading automatically. So it will be the multiple choice type question. So we don't have any chance to make your own argument and see how you are smart, how you prove yourself to me, your smartness or your brightness, because the multiple choice type question is the worst type of questions I've thought, because it does not show any clue of students in terms of creativity or in terms of writing skills or something that are crucial to the university level study. So even after this course, you need to develop yourself into the more creative and more barber person rather than making choice given choice sets like the multiple choice type person. That is not creative and that is not much respected after graduation life. Anyway, so this is just samcheonpo, so we can just get back to our own work of the chapter 7, right? So the rule is pretty simple. Assume that you are a single producer. Then the best way to produce something, any good or services, is produce as many goods or as much services you can produce, right? So maximize your output and the given your input. But also you need to minimize the cost to produce a unit of your productions, right? So ISO cost curve will be minimized. But in the given ISO cost curve, you can produce as much or as many goods or services, right? So minimizing ISO cost curve, but your ISO quant curve have to meet the ISO cost curve, where they should be met at one point, which means that they have to be tangent each other. Tangent means they are meeting at the one point, because ISO cost curve is the straight line, but ISO quant curve is usually a curve concave to the origin, right? So they have to meet at one point. If they meet 2 points, it will not be the optimal point of the production. You can simply imagine that if they are not met each other, then you cannot produce anything, right? So you have to make your isoquant curve to meet isocost curve at least 1 point. But let's assume that your isoquant curve meets isocost curve at the 2 points, like cross-section or something, which means that you are meeting the lower isocost curve. But there is still a room to develop your production level by putting out of your isoquant curve outward from the origin, right? So meeting isocost curve and the isoquant curve each other at 1 point, the tangent each other, is the best solution for you. Maximize your profit or minimize your cost. The third rule is just paraphrasing of your second rule. A money you spend on one input gives the best outcome from the other input, right? So which means that your opportunity cost will be maximized. You should give up something to get the other one, right? From your consumer choice theory. It is the same in your production theory too. If you want to put more input, for instance, your labor input, then you need to give up the other input, like capital, to maintain the same level of production, right? So you always think the ratio between the value you give up and the value you can get. There is trade-off between those two, giving up one input and getting back the other input by giving up the input, right? And you should maximize the trade-off. That's just the other words or the other sentence that the tangential rule tells you. Okay, we'll see in the next page. So this page is really important. You need to understand every sentences. You don't have to memorize that, but you need to understand that. So cost minimization is simple to understand. Lower isocost curve is the best one, but there is a trade-off. If you lower down your isocost curve, there is slim chance to produce more output because your isoquant curve will have to meet your isocost curve to produce something, right? So isocost curve slope is negative W over R. It is fixed because it is the market factor price level, the relative market factor prices between your labor and your capital, which is represented by negative W over R. So it is the fixed. You cannot change this ratio. The only thing you can change or you can control is the slope of your isoquant curve, because you have numerous slopes in your isoquant curve, because isoquant is usually a curve. It is usually concave, except one extreme case, which is that the straight line isoquant curve. It could be still possible, but it is the extreme case. And what was the definition of isoquant curve slope? It is MRTS, marginal rate of technical substitution, negative marginal product of labor over marginal product of capital. And we just learned the relation between isocost and the isoquant from the previous page. So you related the marginal product of labor or capital into some part of the cost from making some equation things, right? So that's the tangential. So in this example, we have a specific numbers here. Your output level is 100, the fixed, and your wage per single unit of labor is $24, and the rate of return to your capital is $8. So the negative W over R is negative 3 by simple calculation. So which means that the isocost curve has the slope of negative 3. It is fixed and we cannot control over it. And we have only one isoquant curve which produces 100 of quantity of output, right? So this isoquant curve will not meet 1,000 ISO cost curve, right? And it will meet at one point where the x is at with 2,000 ISO cost curve. And this ISO quant curve will meet with a 3,000 ISO cost curve or ISO cost line with 2 points, y and z. So we can conclude that which one is our best solution. 1,000 ISO cost curve is not possible. It is not feasible to us, right? So 1,000 ISO cost curve is a kind of production possibility frontier which is too small to meet our 100 output ISO quant curve, right? How about a 3,000 ISO cost curve? It meets 2 points with 100 quantities ISO quant curve, but with 3,000 ISO cost curve, what can we do? We can increase the production level, right? We can pull out of our ISO quant curve, for instance, like 200 output ISO quant curve, so we can have a higher level of ISO quant curve with the 3,000 ISO cost curve because we have more resources, right? We have more budget to produce more output. So a 3,000 ISO cost curve and 100 the quantities of output ISO quant curves are a feasible, so we can produce this level, but it is not optimal. How about 2,000 ISO cost curve and a 100 output of quantity ISO quant curve? They are meeting one point, the x, right? So at the point of x, you are using the 50 units of labor per hour and 100 units of capital per an hour, right? So the slope is -3 for both ISO cost curve and ISO quant curve, so they are tangent each other. At the point of x, the slope for ISO cost and ISO quant are equal each other. That's the condition. That's the condition to find out the optimal level of production. Okay? So if you have to memorize, I hate to say you have to memorize, but if you want really memorize something, then you can memorize this thing for your exam, because in your exam it is closed book test. Okay? Any question? Even if you have question, you cannot have a question to me, right? So the previous page is the graphical representation of the rule for the optimal production. And this is the numerical or the quantitative representations for your that three rules. Okay, so number 17 to number 20, they are talking about the same thing. They are exactly the identical issues, identical economic meaning. Your MRTS, the slope for ISO quant should be equals to your slope of ISO cost curve. And in the previous pages, we can replace MRTS with the relative marginal product of labor to the capital, right? So number 19 is the combination result from number 17 and number 19. And number 20 is just rewriting of equation number 19. But the economic meaning of equation number 19 and 20 are a little bit different, but they are talking about the same result. Number 20 is last dollar rule, where number 19 is about tangency rule. Okay, so tangency and last dollar rules are just talking about the same thing, but you have to understand that at the point of x, tangency rule and the last dollar rule, both rules are satisfied, and the point of x has that two economic meanings. Okay, so which means that in our practical exam, you can use equation number 19 or you can use equation number 20 to find out the answer. It doesn't matter. You can use either number 19 or 20. But if you are asked to write down the economic meanings of that, a kind of equilibrium point of x, then you should write down two things. Tangency, it has some economic meaning, like the slope things. And the last dollar bill, it has totally different economic meaning, right? The opportunity cost meaning, right? I believe in you because you guys are definitely smarter than me. From my previous 2.5 years of experience in the Chungnam National University, I discovered that majority part of my past students were smarter than me. In terms of IQ or in terms of any measurement, they were definitely smart. Because the human beings evolutionized themselves. So I was born maybe not 20 years, but maybe 15 years before, earlier than you guys. So you guys should be definitely better than me because you guys have the evolutionized gene inside your body and inside your brain. So statistically, you have the better chance to be smarter than me. And I found some kinds of clues or some kinds of evidences for that argument. So the one thing I would like to ask you before final exam is that you have to have a confidence, but you also have to suspect yourself at the same time. To be confident, but suspect yourself. You must be missing something very important. So be vigilant to find out any missing link between your current status and your targeted status, where maybe the professor wants from you, right? So I have, for instance, for this course, you have had a lot of difficulties in solving your midterm exam. And I believe the big part of the reasons for your struggle was you failed to find out the better way to study about the microeconomics. And now you have a experience, which means that you are learning from your mistake. So you have the better solution to find out the better way to study about the microeconomic theory, and it's for this course. Then now you are approaching a little bit closer to what I want from you guys. That's a part of evolutionization, right? And the good news is that the final exam should be definitely easier than your midterm exam because it is multiple choice type question. So even if you don't have studied, you can just pick one or four choices. So you have technically 25% of getting the right answer. That's huge, right? Even if you don't study, but you still have 25% of chance for each question. That's pretty good, right? But I also know that many students don't study at all at the Chungnam National University. I also understand that reality. So my targeting audience is the top level of students always. Okay, so this is the combination of graphical and the numerical representation of that three rules concept, right? So you can calculate the MPL and the MPK technically by your hand, right? And that is the part of the answer or part of the example. So you can rewrite equation number 19 into equation number 20, right? Am I right? Yes, 20, to show the last dollar rule holds simultaneously with the tangent rule at the point of x. Okay, so we can just see the graph. So this is the real practice problem which is highly likely to be appeared on your final exam for the calculation problem. Use the tangential rule to determine the cost minimizing bundles of labor and capital for a general Cobb-Douglas production function. Cobb-Douglas, you don't have to study about the person named Cobb and Douglas. They were pretty good economists because they invented this type of function. And this type of function has been widely used in many parts of economics and the business because it has very tractable, but it has also very realistic measurement for our real economic activities. For instance, in macroeconomic world, the Q in the equation number 21 could be your GDP, the gross domestic product of a nation. And L may be the labor force, the total number of labor force, and the K may be the total amount of investment. And the alpha and beta are the ratio of the factor income. For instance, alpha plus beta should be 1, so it is normalized by 1. So alpha can stand for the relative labor income ratio to the capital income ratio, right? And A might be the total factor productivity of a nation. Then this equation number 21 can be understood by the GDP structure. And many central banks and many research institutions and the academic scholars use this Cobb-Douglas function for their own research to study about the GDP, for instance. So this is one of just an example, and there are numerous the other examples that shows this Cobb-Douglas function or form is widely used by many economists and the business and statisticians. Okay, so I strongly recommend you to be familiar with this type of functional form for your further study. If you are just sophomore or junior and you have tons of classes to take in your future semesters, then it is highly recommended to be familiar with this functional form. Being familiar with the functional form is that you have to be familiar with the taking derivatives of this one in economics course specifically speaking. But kindly, this question gives you the real number. The A is given by 1.516 and the alpha is given by 0.6 and the beta is given by 0.4. What about Q, L, and K? They are not given any specific number because in the long run, L and K are unknown variable, which means that we can control for the amount of L and K. And the Q may be the dependent variable, which means that it is the result of the function. We cannot control for it, but we can get the specific number of Q by putting the right number of L and K. And since we have to use the tangential rule, we need to have the information about the slope of iso-cost curve. And fortunately, we can get the information. The wage per unit of labor is 24, and the rate of return to the capital, the single unit of capital, is 8. So we can get the slope of iso-cost curve should be the -3. So we have almost every information we need. The only thing remaining to calculate the tangential rule is to taking derivatives of equation number 21 respect by L and K. Then we can get the marginal product of labor, which is the result of taking derivatives of equation number 21 with respect to the L. And we can also get the marginal product of capital by taking derivatives of equation number 21 with respect to the K. Simple, right? And I believe every single of you guys can do that. No? Yes, you have to do that. This is not the hardest requirement for the mathematics, I believe. This is the basic for every single student studying economics and management or trade. Trade is just combination between economics and the business, right? Some part of your study in the trade department is economics related course, and the other part of study you have to take is the business related course, right? For instance, marketing, international marketing, or electronic trade, or transportation, logistics. They are all about the part of the business. And you have international trade theory or international finance, micro and macroeconomics, and the trade policy that are a part of the economics related course. Both courses, both parts in your department, you need to be familiar with some certain level of mathematics. It will ease in your life. It will make your life easier. I'm pretty sure about that. So anyway, you could calculate the marginal product of labor and the capital by yourself. And number 22, the equation number 22 is the result of your calculation. The MRTS is given by negative marginal product of labor over marginal product of capital. So this is result. You can do that by yourself. If you cannot do that, you can do that with your friend. If you and your friend cannot do that, just come to my office. We can do by our hands. So by the tangent rule, the cost is minimized if your MRTS equals to the slope of your ice cost curve, and we know the slope of ice cost curve, which is negative 3. So you can put the negative 3 in the equation number 23, and we know the ratio of the alpha and beta. So the only unknown variable is the k and the L, right? So the final answer is not a given specific number, but it will be the ratio between the k and L, like equation number 24. K is 2 times the L. So in the optimal level of production with this given functional structure and with given the market price for your input factors, then your amount of capital input should be invested twice of your labor. That's your answer, right? Whatever you want, whatever. So there might not be a specific number of capital and labor, but in your answer, you can have the specific ratio between the capital and the labor in your input structure. I think that's pretty good insight or the rule. If you really operate your own production chains or production mechanism, you can just keep this ratio to continue your optimal level of production. You can increase or decrease, it doesn't matter, but you can just keep the ratio between the capital and the labor. All right? Am I spending too much time on this chapter? I don't know. So, the variation of something will make your head a little bit more confused, but we have to think about it. If there is a decrease in your wage, which means that the slope of iso cost curve will be decreased. Decreasing slope of your straight line could be graphically represented by flattening, right? So your curve should be changed to be flatter from a little bit 연한. How to translate 연하다 into the English? I I cannot remember the appropriate words. But anyway, from the solid or from the darker blue line to the darker blue line. So your ice cost curve should be the flatter after decreasing in your wage, assuming your R is the same, right? So your optimal level of production could be changed from X to the Y because your ISO quant for 100 output is just only one, right? You don't have two or more ISO quant curve for the same unit of output quantity, the 100 in this example, right? So fixing your ISO quant curve, the only change is the slope of ISO cost curve. So the tangent point is changed from X to the Y because the slope of ISO cost curve is flattening, right? So since your wage is decreasing, you have more reason to hire more labor and decrease your capital because price per capital is relatively increasing, right? Because W is decreasing. So your workers hired per hour is increasing from 50 to 77, but your capital you hire is decreased from 100 to 52, right? Whew. And the total cost is decreasing from 2,000 to 1,032. Why? Because your wage is decreasing, right? Wage decreasing is good for you if you are the CEO. It is bad for workers hired by you, but you are hiring more workers, so it could be better for your community or something. I don't know about that. So this is a little bit of application problem. So I can just give you the guideline for the answer keys, not solving together. So the question is, if a single firm manufactures at home country, the company faces input prices for labor and capital of W hat and R hat. Hat means it is the specific number, maybe 8 or maybe 24. Any random specific constant number, okay? And produces Q hat units of the output using the large L units of labor and the large K units of the capital. So all the informations are given in our example, not by number, but we can assume that they are just specific number, randomly picking the specific number. But abroad, the wage and the cost of capital are half as much as at home. Maybe so. If the wage in the home country is W hat, then the wage in the foreign country is 1/2 times a W hat, right? If the firm manufactures going abroad, will it change the amount of labor and the capital it uses to produce the quantity output the same level at home? What happens to each cost of producing Q hat? So the cost of labor and the capitals are decreased by half, but you are wanting to keep the same level of your output Q hat, then what happens? So first of all, you need to decide which one it changes, ICE quant or ICE cost. In this example, you want to keep the same level of output, so ICE quant will not be changed. You can keep the same ICE quant curve, but only changes is the ICE cost lines because the cost lines are changes. Using the rule for cost minimization, determine whether the firm changes in its input mix. The wage and the cost of capital are decreasing by half. So what about the ratio, the relative ratio between the wage and the cost of capital? Since they are decreasing by half, I think it will be the same. So the slope of ICE cost curve is not changing. So now you can guess the only change in this example which is the intercept point of ISO cost curve, right? So the new cost will be different from the original cost, but now you are clear that your ISO quant curve is not changing and the slope of your new ISO cost curve is not changing either. The only changing is the slope. So you can graphically show that, or you can numerically show that how the new cost is different from your old cost, right? Because the only change is the intercept. Right, we have 40 more pages and we are already patching up the 40 minutes of this video. So let's go for it. I can do that. You know, speaking out in front of monitor without any audience, even in the English, is pretty tough. You can test by yourself. It is pretty much tough. Sometimes I'm feeling that I'm crazy because literally I am talking to the wall of my office for an hour in English in South Korea. It's pretty good example for a madman, right? So I had to go to the hospital after this class because I have a mental issue. I'm joking, sorry about that. Okay, so another definition, the expansion path. Expansion path is pretty simple to define. You can just connect every single cost minimizing combination of labor and capital for each output level. So for instance, for each output level, you have each different single ICE quant curve, right? So for each ICE quant curve, there will be only one cost minimizing point where the combination of labor and capital is at, right? So you can connect all the point for every single ICE quant, then it could be the definition of the expansion path. Like this. So this is just example. There should be another ICE quant between the Q100 and the Q150 ICE quant. There could be maybe 49 different ICE quant curve, but there will be the infinite different number of the ICE quant between those two ICE quant curve. But anyway, so this is just simple graphical representation of expansion paths. For Q100 ICE quant, the X is cost minimizing combination between the L and the K. And for the Q150 ICE quant, the point Y is the optimal cost minimizing point where 75 labors and 150 units of capitals are combined to produce a level of that output of 150. For the Q equals to 100 ICE quant curve, the point Z is the cost minimizing point where 100 labors and 200 capitals are combined to produce 200 units of quantity of outputs. So you can just connect X, Y, and Z, then you can get the one simple line. It does not have to be the straight line. It could be just like this line. It doesn't matter. It is called expansion path. Even for me, I don't know why we studied expansion path, but I think it is better to know about it than not to know about it. So in the long run, cost curve, it is determined by the production function relationship between the output and the input. Simple, right? So the upper graph is the total cost curve, and the lower graph is the marginal and average cost curve. The same, the marginal cost crosses the minimum point of average cost and average variable cost, but in the long run, there is no fixed cost, so average cost is the same with average variable cost. right? Oof. So the last one important thing to study in this chapter, economies of scale, right? So there are 2 or 3 properties. First one is economies of scale. It is a property of a cost function. So it is a matter of cost function where the average cost, not marginal cost, not total cost, but the average cost falling as output increasing. So it is the relation between the output and the average cost. If average cost falls as your output goes up, then we can say that this production is economies of scale. But if average cost increasing when your output, the quantity of output is increasing, then you can say that this production structure is diseconomies of scale. Okay, so it is the relation between the output and the average cost. So you can determine which period or which 구간 is economies of scale or the constant scale or the diseconomies of scale, right? From output 1 to 3, your total cost is increased by 24, from 24 to 48. But the average cost is decreasing from 24 to 16, where your output level is increasing from 1 unit to 3 units. So, by definition, your average cost is decreasing from 24 to 16, where your output increases from 1 to 3. We can say that it is economies of scale. But from output level 3 to 6, the average cost is the same as 16. So there is no change in average cost, even your output level increased by 3. So it is constant economies of scale. How about the output level from 6 to 8? From 6 to 8, your output level is still increasing, but your average cost is increasing as well, from 16 to 24. So we have diseconomies of scale in the period of output level 6 to 8. So this is the same single manufacturer. We don't have 2 or more manufacturers in this table. We have the production structure table of a single manufacturer, but even the single manufacturer have different structure in the relationship between the average cost and the output. So one firm can have economies of scale in one part and diseconomies of scale in the other part. So this is the example of Canadian manufacturing. So how about that? Economies of scale is 57%. This economies of scale upward sloping average cost curve is 14%. So this is pretty old research result, 1992, but we can say that, okay, so Canadian manufacturing firm has pretty good economies of scale structure, majority of them. And the level of cost in wider version of view between the long run and the short run. In the long run, since there is no fixed cost and every single firm is more flexible to change their plans in the long run, so they can more flexibly react to the changes of circumstance or changes of any unexpected things happening to them. So they can be more flexible in the cost minimizing structure or cost minimizing procedure. So the firm's long run decision determines is short-term cost, which means that by graph like this, every single short-run average cost curve is graphed by SRAC1, SRAC2, and 3. And your long-run average cost curve, tangent or short-run average cost curve, and the minimum point of that, like point A and point E, and maybe the right part of point. So how about to exemplify the Q1? In the Q1, in the short run AC curve, H curve is, repeating the curve term, so AC, we can compare point A and B. At the point B, to produce the Q1, the amount of Q1, in the short run, you have the fixed cost, and you have also cannot change your capital. You can only control for your labor, so there will be a higher level of cost. So you have the 12 average cost, but in the long run, you can control for both labor and capital, and you can anticipate, further coming unexpected issues. So you can control for more flexibly. So you have only $10 of average cost, and it could be happen at every single your output quantity level, like Q2 and like Q3 if we define Q3. So AC in the long run is always lower than AC in short run. Okay. Pass. So this is one extreme case of the beer manufacturing firm. But you can just understand that in this case, your long run AC equals to your long run marginal cost. And you have the two different short run AC and the MC curve, and MC and AC shows just typical properties, crossing the minimum point of AC for your MC, and it also intersects the long run AC curve in the minimum point because it is flattening curve, right? So one extreme case of example. Another example. So you have the two different printing capacity, laser printer or inkjet printer. They have different cost structure, but in the long run, you can have the best choice in the long run, always, because you are more flexible in choosing between the laser and the inkjet printers. So long run H curve always, lower than your short run H curve at any point. And this is the expansion path between the long run and the short run. In the short run, the firm cannot vary its capital because we can only control for the labor part. So its short run expansion path is horizontal because your capital unit is fixed in the short run. But in the long run, you can control for both capital and the labor. So you can change capital and labor simultaneously. So your long run expansion path generally increasing graph. Okay. Am I too quick to pass? The last one is the learning by doing. It's really simple to understand. But it is really important issues in economic research part. So if you are interested in studying more about economics at the higher level of degree program like master's or PhD, then learning by doing, you will meet at least once in your study. Have you ever thought about going to the graduate school? Once again, I recommend you strongly because our department, the trade department, I don't know about the economics or business department. I'm not the person in that department, but our department, the trade department, has tons of money. That's one good thing. So you can get fund if you come to the master's degree program. of our department, and you will be paid for working just small things. So you can study a deeper part of economics or international business in our department with the money. That's pretty good 2 years to prepare for your better job market. After getting your master's degree, then your job market will be totally different, which means that you can get the better condition job with your higher degree. And I really believe it is pretty good strategy for your job market. If you think this year's job market is pretty bad for the undergraduate, then going to the graduate school is pretty good option. And our department has a lot of money, and most importantly, pretty good professors we have. Not me, but all the other professors are pretty good, and they are really smart, and they are really nice. I haven't met the better persons like our professors in my previous work experience. So I'm pretty much satisfied with the people networking and relationship things in our department. So we'll definitely have the same feeling. So don't worry about all kinds of 갑질 by the professor to the graduate student. We don't have any kinds of that culture in our department. We are all the equal, so we are just equal co-workers. You are professor, you are graduate student, doesn't matter. We just study together and we work together on the paper, and you can get the degree by approved by the professor. That's the only different ranking between the professors and graduate students. But the studying at the higher level, the goal is the same. So I recommend you to consider about going to the graduate program. Don't choose me. That's pretty risky option. You will have the more pain with the more mathematics. But anyway, the running by doing is understood as the decreasing cost part. As you work more at the same workplace, then your second year effort should be less than your first year effort, because you know everything. You know how everything is going well after your first year, right? So your putting effort could be a little bit more minimized. If you work at the same workplace for more than 10 years, then you can say everything right? Because you know everything. So the cost could be decreased more. By the graph, like this. From H1 on the right hand side graph to the H3, your average cost could be decreased because of your running by doing, right? So that's the simple concept. Right, so the remaining part, the cost could be usually decreased over time because, most importantly, technological reason, technological progress can decrease the cost, and maybe economies of scale. As time goes by, your factories can increase your size, then you can realize the economies of scale. And also you can run by doing, and your workers can also be running by doing. If you keep hiring them for years, then your workers can also be an expert for years. So by running by doing, or economies of scale, or the technological progress can contribute to the possible decreasing of cost over time. And the last page. Economies of scope is a little bit different concept, but we can just checking it. You don't have to study about it, but just checking it. It is a situation where it is less expensive to produce goods jointly than separately. So if you produce two things simultaneously, you can get a little bit of cost efficient situation than producing those two goods separately. So this is definition of economies of scope. And production possibility frontier, we also knew it, and we can apply this concept into the ICE cost curve and the other production part of the graph, right? Okay, so wow, last thing, but we can ignore that simply. Okay, so this is the end of chapter 7, the cost, and the next part we study about the competitive market and the firm decision making, which is maybe one conclusive part of our semester.